Welcome to my review of Agent Intercept for the Nintendo Switch. And this game is on just about every modern platform, it seems. It took me around 2 hours and 27 minutes to beat. And it's actually quite a good game. It's one that I never really heard of before, so it was, definitely a cool little downloadable game to discover. It kind of reminds me of Spy Hunter on the PS2. Very similar, it's the kind of game where you have objectives in each stage that you're supposed to complete. You don't initially have to complete all of them, but, the idea is eventually you won't be able to progress in the campaign until you earn enough points by completing the objectives to move on to the next missions. So, you will most likely have to replay some of the missions again, but from what I remember, it does save your progress. If you complete a level, you can kind of just say that maybe you just want to do like two of the objectives, focus on two or three of the objectives, and you don't have to worry about the other objectives. You can focus on a few at a time, complete the stage, and then you don't have to complete those objectives again when you replay the stage. It will save that, from what I remember. And you have some weapons and things to take out vehicles, and taking out vehicles is also part of some of the objectives, like taking out a certain amount of specific vehicles, and a lot of different things like that. There's a lot of unique objectives within the stage that keep it fresh, keep it interesting. The camera changes and things give it kind of a cinematic feel, and the game just feels good to play, good control. Sometimes some of the camera angles may make it a little bit confusing, but I would say players with a moderate amount of skill won't have too much trouble with the game. And as far as the replay value, it's going to depend. If you want to do all the objectives in the game, you could try to just do everything that's in the game. And I think players with a moderate amount of skill, it wouldn't take them too much longer than it took me to beat the game to do everything, But maybe you could extend that playtime by a few hours if you do every objective. But the game, I believe it's maybe an hour and a half if you don't fuck up. And that's probably with replaying certain stages, if I remember right. But I don't remember if I edited down my playthrough with the repeat missions, because, I did have to repeat a lot of the missions multiple times to get all the objectives, to get enough points. I don't know if you have to get them all, but you would have to get enough points to get onto the next mission. So, I did have to replay some of the missions, but it wasn't too grindy. It wasn't like Spy Hunter for PS2 where I had to replay the missions a lot. And this, I might have to replay a mission a few times to do some of the extra objectives, but it really wasn't anything too crazy. You know what I mean? It remained fun because the missions were so enjoyable. I didn't mind replaying them because it's really good action. And during the stages, kind of like the old Spy Hunter, your car can turn into different vehicles, like a plane, a boat, depending on what kind of terrain it's going over. So it keeps the levels interesting, and there's a lot of obstacle navigation and a lot of different things changing as you're going through the stages that keep it exciting. Of course, it's linear. It's always going to be the same type of thing each time, but there are a few diverging paths, as you can see, but not many. It's mostly you're going down a single path, but there is a few diverging paths and things like that would take you down a slightly different areas and stuff like that. So sometimes you may want to try different routes. If you're not getting all the objectives, you may want to try going down a different route. And sometimes it's easier to focus on some of the harder objectives in a subsequent playthrough of the stage rather than trying to do everything in one run. So it's kind of a good idea. Maybe pick a few objectives to kind of aim for, but don't worry about getting them all in a single run. It's hard, if not impossible, to do everything in a single stage playthrough. It may be possible. I beat this some months ago, so I don't remember, the exact details of how much you can get done in a single stage run. But, I played it casually. I was just, I would try to do what I could, and then whatever I missed, I would clean up on, subsequent playthroughs of the stage. And it was very enjoyable. It never got grindy. And definitely just a good, solid, action game. Just kind of a fun playthrough. Not necessarily a game that I would come back to and replay a lot or anything like that. But for a one-time playthrough, I thought it was really enjoyable. And like I said, if you really, really want to, take it further, I still say that the game is probably going to be pretty casual. It doesn't have a lot of depth. It's pretty much on rails. So if you want to get more out of it, you can. Try to do all the objectives and things like that. I don't know if there's much else that you can really do as far as replay, unless you're making your own personal challenges, which getting all the objectives is kind of like a personal challenge because the game doesn't require it to beat it. But you could do other things like maybe, I don't know about a speed run because it is an on-rails kind of game. So maybe you could do a speed run as far as like trying to get the objectives, not miss any. I guess that would beat the game faster, so you might be able to, you could try to do something like that if you're making your own challenges. But aside from that, the game doesn't have a hell of a lot of depth to it. It's a pretty simple on-rails kind of game where you try to grab the objectives as you're passing through the environments. I don't think you can put on the brakes and stop at any point. You're just constantly moving, and you just have to try to get everything done as the game kind of auto-scrolls. So you're dodging shit, you're doing certain objectives. Now the game, in the beginning of each mission, will give you a list of the objectives that you have to complete. And of course, like I said, you don't have to do them all in one run of the stage. You can replay the stages as many times as you want until you clean up all the objectives, and it will save whatever ones you finish. The game also, I believe, does save as well. It auto-saves, so you can shut it off. And like I said, the whole thing took me about 2 hours and 27 minutes to beat, which included all the replaying the stages and all that shit. So, some players, it may take them a few hours longer or maybe less, depending on your skill level. But players who do beat it are probably not going to have to spend that much more time if you want to do all the objectives. I don't think it's going to extend the gameplay that much, because I don't think any of the objectives are really that hard. Some of them may be tough to get on your first run through the stage when you don't know the stage, and it can be hard to get some of them when you're trying to get other objectives, because they do kind of clash with each other sometimes, from what I remember. So if you're trying to take out a certain amount of vehicles, it may be hard to complete another objective while you're in the middle of that one. So that's why it works out well that you can replay the stages and clean up whatever you missed. Now in my case, I usually only cleaned up the objectives that I needed to do. Since the way I usually play games generally is I kind of go through a large volume of games, like a kind of a mass killing style. I'm not really a speedrunner or anything like that, but my style is more, I go through a high volume. I've had months where I've beaten over 70 games, so that is a little rare. I don't usually go that high, but I kind of keep a minimum of like 25 games a month usually, and maybe about 428 games a year has been my last few years. So it's a high volume. So for me, I'm kind of stingy on the games that I replay and really try to master. I will replay games usually for things like the extreme difficulty modes and things like that, if I really like a game. But I don't do a lot of speed runs or 1cc challenges or things like that intentionally. Some of the stuff that I do like that on my channel, like the 1cc runs or the no death runs, just happen to work out that way when I finally beat the game. It could be that I over practiced, or maybe I got a little lucky, for a game, or some games are just dead easy. So I do hunt down a lot of super easy games, to fill out the kill list. I'm always, looking for shit that I can beat. And, some games do take a while, but there's a lot that are quick. So this one is a pretty fast kill. I mean, it's not too bad time-wise. It's not a 20-minute game or a 5-minute game like some of the real short games, but it's just a good solid length. It feels like it doesn't overstay its welcome. It just feels like a good solid action game. And I'd give it a 7 out of 10. If you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching.